Avengers of the Arrowverse episode 5. We're going to be talking about Arrow season 5. If you enjoy the episode of the podcast, hit the button down below, guys, if you're new. Appreciate your support on the podcast. We started it 5 weeks ago now. So thank you for all the support over the last 5 weeks. And let's keep it going. So, this season was hands down, I think, the best season the show has had. Or one of the best. I wouldn't say it's the best, but because my favorite season is later in the show. But I'd say this is second the best out of all the seasons on Arrow. There's season 4 and 3 not being that well. Season 5 brought the show back. It brought it back to a kind of like OG Arrow, like brutal Arrowverse back in the beginning of the season, kind of carrying throughout. Not as much. It was like 501 through 505, somewhere around there. It kind of stopped a little bit. But it did bring back brutal Oliver. It brought back that Oliver is killing a little bit now. When he really needs to kill, he's doing it. He's not really throwing it out of the window like he was in 4 and 3. You know, he's still being like, I'm a hero, but if I need to kill, I'm doing it. And that was the kind of thing that, again, carried out the entire season with Oliver, was that, you know, he didn't want to kill, but if he had to, he would. And we were doing Tobias Church at the beginning of the season, and then we got into Prometheus right away. In 501, we learned about him a little bit, and how psycho he is, knowing that he didn't want anyone to go after Oliver but himself, or the Green Arrow, because he found out that Oliver was the Green Arrow. And then everything, this season was just great all around. The only thing that I would complain about is the flashbacks. I don't really care for them at all. I'm just going to make this one comment on it, and then that's pretty much it. You're not going to hear anything else from me about the flashbacks. Two things. There was one flashback where we found out that Prometheus was Simon Morrison, aka, why am I blinking on his name? Whoever the guy's father was. I'm blanking on his name. Oliver killed him, and Simon Morrison, aka Adrian Chase, went full-on psycho, spent 5 years becoming the man to match Oliver Queen. Those flashbacks to kind of like season 1 era were really good. I like that. Why am I forgetting his name? I literally just rewatched the episode earlier, like 2 minutes before recording this. I forgot his name. Claiborne. Yeah, Claiborne, I think it was. I could be wrong. Yeah, Justin Claiborne. I don't know why I forgot that, but Oliver killed Justin Claiborne, Simon Morrison's father, and aka Adrian Chase, who became Prometheus and all that. The flashbacks with Oliver killing Claiborne and that whole scene with Billy Malone being taken, and then, you know, what happened there. Oliver killing him, thinking that he was Prometheus, didn't know that it was a setup the whole time. That entire episode was great, and those flashbacks in the episode were great. The other scenes of the flashbacks there were good. I don't remember what episode it was, but it's with Talia, and it was a scene where Oliver became the Hood at the time. And it was a massive connection to Susan finding out that Oliver was the Green Arrow. Because they were in Russia at the same time, Oliver and the Hood, that makes zero sense for them being at the same time, unless they were the same person. Unless Oliver Queen was the Hood, aka the Green Arrow, it made sense that Susan would figure that out, obviously. But those flashbacks were good. And Anatoly, I loved Anatoly. I always have. Both in person and the flashbacks. He really made the flashbacks better. But at the same time, I just didn't really care for the rest. And I think that's a popular opinion for a lot of people because, you know. But I do want to say, this being the last season for the flashbacks, I'm glad we did get them because it did show us what kind of person Oliver, not really kind of person he is, we know what kind of person he is, but what he went through and what led up to him being who he was in Arrow Season 1. Those really, really, truly dark episodes, that all came from these 5 years in hell that Oliver went through. So I'm glad we got to see that, because some shows wouldn't do that. They'd be, you know, like, oh, here's 5 years in hell, let's not talk about it, though. Like, at least we're getting some background into it, so I'm glad we're getting that. instead of just them saying, you went through 5 years in hell, let's not talk about it. I'm glad they're doing it. I just wish it was a little bit better and more, more interesting, I guess you can say. At least for me, it wasn't interesting. I didn't really care for besides those 2 scenes I mentioned. But again, that's what I'm going to be talking about for the flashbacks, pretty much. So then we were picking up a couple months after season 5, sorry. We picked up a couple months after season 4 at the beginning of the season. Like I said, Bruto Alva's back. He's killing when he needs to. We're dealing with the new vigilantes that kind of emerged when Alva killed Damien Dark. Like a movement of vigilantes to help protect the city. Like Wild Dog and Evelyn Sharp, who's Artemis, and Ragman, Roy Regan, and Curtis, aka Mr. Terrific. He didn't become Terrific till later, but you get what I mean. Those 3 or 4 people I can't count, apparently, wanted to not really help Alva at the time, but, well, Curtis did, but Renee, Evelyn, and Rory, they weren't in it to really help Alva. They were in it to help the city and help themselves. Rory was in it because, I'm forgetting the company, but the person's nuke launched and destroyed Haven Rock, which, again, Felicity caused, but she did it to prevent a massive, death toll, which would eventually make Dark vulnerable. But I did like Rory being set up, and Rory's story being set up the way it was. I do wish he was on longer, because I really did like him. I get why they couldn't keep him on, though, but I was hoping they'd keep him on. I am glad they brought him back in 8-10, the series finale. I'm glad they brought him back for that, but I do wish we got him back earlier. That would have been nice. But obviously with Evelyn being the traitor in this group, working with Prometheus to stop Alva, because I don't remember the exact reason, but something to do with him not being a hero or whatever. I didn't really care for it, but and then we're dealing with, well, there's a new recruit, which is Dinah Drake. Obviously, at this point in time, it's been like several months since Alva recruited Renee, Curtis, and Evelyn left, and Rory, I think, was leaving or was about to at the time. And I love Dinah as a Black Canary. There's some scenes that I was like, okay, that could be better writing, or a little bit less cringy, but I really do like the person who plays Dinah Drake. She's amazing at it. I really did wish Green on the Canaries got picked up, but I think she was an amazing Black Canary, much better than Laurel was as a Black Canary. I didn't mind Laurel as a Black Canary, but I much preferred Dinah Drake over it. So, just me. I also liked how Chase is pretty much saying that he knew everything Alva was going to do. There was nothing that Alva did that he wasn't, that Chase wasn't prepared for. And also, everything that Alva was doing before he even knew Chase was Prometheus, Chase planned it. He knew when Alva would find out Chase was Prometheus. He knew Talia would tell him. He knew everything that was going to happen. And it was a really amazing story setup. It was really well hidden that Chase is Prometheus. I think at some level, some people knew, like, okay, Chase is someone bad, but who the hell is it? I don't think we really expected to be Prometheus, but, that was me watching it for the first time a couple months ago. I had no idea it was Chase. That Chase was Prometheus, but I'm so glad that it was, because it made really good storytelling. It was really amazing to see, and it really fit for the season, all this being about, Alva, twisting Alva to the point where he's broken in several ways, dealing with Prometheus getting in Alva's head, with Alva being with Susan for a quarter of the season or a little bit more, Alva being the mayor, being the Green Arrow, having to throw the Green Arrow on the bus because he can't blow his identity, and Chase is cornering him in, and then seeing that interaction, and then everyone trying to convince Alva that he's not broken, he's nothing like what Chase is saying. It was a really good season. Anything with this entire season was great, besides flashbacks, but a little bit bad writing here and there, but otherwise it was pretty damn good. I mean, you can't argue with you can't really argue this season was bad, because it really wasn't. or at least from what I could tell. We dealt a little bit with William. Well, mainly towards the end of the season, we were dealing with William and Susan, William's mother. But we did mention it here and there throughout the season because Oliver was worried Chase would, take him, and eventually he did. We were dealing with Felix and Felix. There it is. Felicity and Helix. I just kind of combined the two. Felix. Felicity and Helix working together, which I didn't necessarily mind, but I wasn't like, this is amazing. Like, I wasn't that interested in it, but it also wasn't that bad either. And obviously this helped John get out of prison for the second time, which was another thing that happened this season. John being arrested for a crime he didn't commit by the general, I'm pretty sure it was, by Walker, and then Oliver breaking John out of prison. That episode was amazing nonetheless. Because again, we get to see Lila again helping get John out. And then Oliver being full on Jim Lee pretty much, and just, breaking him out. It was really amazing to see that. Because I think we all knew that Oliver would do that, but, seeing him actually go through the entire process was really good for the show. I think it helped, a lot. And then Chase coming in the second time John got arrested. This is before we knew he was Prometheus, obviously, and, helping get John out, and then obviously Felicity with Pandora, getting Walker in trouble to get John fully out, and then we're going to Bratva, or to Russia, which, you look back on this show with what's going on in the world right now, yeah. I mean, people were hating on Superman and Lois last week for Superman saving people in Russia. I'm not going to talk about this much. I don't want to get into the entire Russian-Ukraine situation. I stand with Ukraine. I'm not going to stand with Russia. Obviously, anyone who does is completely an idiot. But you have to understand, even if this show, Superman and Lois and Arrow, were on now, right? And they were filming episodes when this entire situation was going on between Russia and Ukraine. If Superman was real, if Arrow was real, right? If these two heroes were real, do you really think they would just let innocent people die? No. That's what I don't get. I don't care what situation is going on in the world right now. You look at Superman. He is a symbol of hope around the entire world. Not just America, not just Ukraine, not just whatever. Around the entire world. So it doesn't really matter what conflicts are going on. If there are innocent people in danger, they're going to go save them. Period. Bottom line. Oliver, Clark, they're the same, well, they're the same kind of hero. And they're going to save innocent lives. So I saw a lot of people hating Superman and Lois last week because they were saving people in Russia. Who the cares? It's Superman. That's what he does. It doesn't matter what problems go in the world. He's going to save innocent people. Bottom line. It shouldn't matter. I don't know. I just want to talk on that for a minute because that kind of ticked me off last week. But it wasn't that many people either. It was just a few idiots being too critical, I think. I guess I can understand where they're coming from a little bit, but that was just too much. But whatever, you get what I'm trying to say. But back to season 5. Dealing with, again, Walker. I mean, Felicity using Pandora, crossing lines, Day crossing lines, and Oliver getting back into Bratva after him pretty much saying that he's done with it. Which, again, we got Anatoly back in that episode, which is really good to see. I liked them. Just getting Dig out of that situation was really good to see. Dealing with Oliver as the mayor. Obviously, the season started off with him not really being the mayor. He was being more the Green Arrow than the mayor because there was no team. Everyone quit. Thea left, Dig left, Laurel died. Curtis wasn't helping really that much, although he did a little bit here and there to help Felicity out. But the only person left on the team was Felicity, and obviously she's in the bunker. She's not out there with Oliver fighting, which, thank God, because if they killed Felicity off, I would have hated this show. I'm telling you right now. Yeah. So that's where we're trying to see the season started off, and then we're going into Oliver being more of a better mayor, more as the team builds on and gets more advanced. Like the team's learning more, Oliver's teaching them all to be like him or a little bit less. Obviously, you can't teach them to be exactly like Oliver. But, you know, it was really cool to see. I'm glad they brought in a new team. I'm glad it was consistent and not like, let's bring in Roy again. Let's bring in Theo. Let's bring Dig back. And let's bring everyone who was on the team before back. Obviously, they brought Dig back, and I'm glad they did. But I'm saying, let's not get an old Team Arrow. Let's get a new Team Arrow in, and I'm so glad they did that. Like I said, new Black Canary, 2 new Vigilantes on the team permanently now. I mean, it was really, really cool to see that new dynamic with Oliver. Because obviously he doesn't trust him. Why would he? And then we're bringing Renee into the mayor stuff, which I really liked. We're bringing Quentin into mayor stuff, being deputy mayor. Again, really, really good to see. So I'm glad they crossed those lines this season. I'm glad that they made the time for it instead of being like, Oliver's the mayor and let's have 2 scenes an episode. Like, no, we needed more than that. They made the entire season 4 basically about Oliver becoming mayor. And now, season 5, you're not going to explore that? No, like, they should explore it, and they did. I'm so glad they did. We had an entire episode related to Oliver being the mayor, which is with the gun control stuff. I'm not going to get into that much, but, because obviously that's a political thing. I'm not going to get into that. But I'm glad they did an episode about that, because I do think it's important that these shows talk about that whenever they can, because this is a world issue. This isn't just a country issue, it's a world issue, and it's not just a city or whatever. It is a countrywide, worldwide issue, so I'm glad that they're bringing in real world issues, because you have to think that they would. With Oliver being the mayor, you can't just have city issues. Like, you have to have major problems going on to bring in Oliver as the mayor, and these are situations that only Oliver could solve as the mayor, not really the Green Arrow. So I'm glad that they did that. I don't know how the episode did in reviews. I'm assuming there are people who obviously hate on it because it was kind of political and all that. Although not really, but it was a political matter, but it really shouldn't have been. It really wasn't. But Arrow trying to bright light on that. That it shouldn't be a political matter, but of course it was because politicians and that. But anyways, I'm glad they made Oliver be the mayor and him actually doing stuff as a mayor. Speaking of Oliver as a mayor, like I said earlier, we're dealing with Oliver having to throw the Green Arrow, aka himself, under the bus a couple times throughout the season because he's trying to stop Chase. And the only way he could do that was violating some laws, which again inevitably ended up with Oliver throwing himself under the bus. We're dealing with Frank Pike, who went into a coma thanks to Chase, after Oliver gave Pike a lead connecting Adrian Chase to Simon Morrison, connecting Simon Morrison and Adrian Chase to Prometheus, meaning Adrian Chase's Prometheus. I love that Pike was back this season. I'm glad he's the captain now. I wish we got more with him. Obviously, he was in a coma for back half of the season. I know we got him back in season 6 and then he died, but it would have been nice to see him again. In season 8, bring him back in Earth 2 or in the finale. I don't know. But it would have been nice to see him one more time, but I get why they didn't probably. They didn't mention Billy Malone much after he died. That's one thing I kind of hated, that they didn't really mention him that much. Which I kind of get why, but at the same time, I kind of wish they mentioned him a little bit more. That would have been nice to see. I don't remember what crossover was this season. I think it was Invasion. Or no, this is the first crossover with Supergirl in it. Yeah, Invasion, right? I think it was Invasion. Which I'll be talking about further in, but it was a pretty good crossover. Obviously, with it being in the first crossover, it kind of has to be good. Like the first big crossover, 3-parter. Or, well, was it three-parter? I think it was three-parter. Arrow, Flash, and Legends, I think it was. So, bring in these 3 shows plus Supergirl, I mean, obviously that's going to be good, you know. Because if it was good then, I wouldn't argue it was good later down the road, but I'll talk about it when we get to Supergirl, but which will be in like a couple months from now. So then, back to season 5. Again, amazing season, as I said. We got Slade back. We got Malcolm back. We got Boomerang Man back. Boomerang Man? Whatever his name was. Harkness. We got Nyssa back. Callium, present day, helping Prometheus. So let's talk about Malcolm for a minute. I love that they brought Malcolm back, and I'm glad that they gave him a redemption arc towards the end of the season, or at the end of the season. On Lian Yu with him saving Thea and saving the rest of Team Arrow while they're trying to get off and run away from Harkness. I mean, it was really, really cool to see. So I'm glad that they brought that in. And then we also got to see Malcolm again several seasons later in season 8 on that Earth 2, you know, bringing Malcolm back when Oliver came back. Slade, which I'm so glad he was redeemed and still not a psycho, you know, whatever. I'm very glad they brought him back. And then having him help Oliver stop Chase, and then it was just really good. I always loved Slade. I mentioned that in my season 2 review. I'm pretty sure I did, that Slade is I think the best villains on the show. But Prometheus is a close second along with Malcolm. Just because these 3 characters throughout the entire show, these 3 villains, Malcolm, Slade, and Chase, always cause a much bigger threat than anyone else in the show. And you could see that the damage was doing to Oliver, especially Slade and Chase. I mean, Malcolm did some damage at the beginning of the season. It kind of picked up later in the season. Slade and Chase were concurrent throughout the entire season, especially Chase as Prometheus. I mean, he was doing a lot of damage to Oliver throughout the entire season. So, I think that's something that really made Prometheus a really, really good villain, especially for the point the show is at, which was dealing with season 4, the backlash the season got because it wasn't really that good. And just, this season came back, this show came back because of season 5, and I'm so glad that they managed to get everything done. I'm going to get the community response. I might add more later on, but yeah. So, again, you want to be a part of the podcast, the episodes, you can join my Arrowverse Discord server in the description down below. Go to podcast response and the community response, and you'll be able to respond to whatever I'm talking about in the episode for the week. This week, again, it was season 5, obviously, so let's get right into it. A member said it was alright, not my favorite, but not the worst. The ending was so sad, but I liked the new people. Talking about Renee, Dinah, and Curtis, and Rory, and all them. And then the ending, obviously, being Lee and you being blown up, and saving William, but also Team Arrow possibly all being dead, which is a cliffhanger. Which, again, I'm glad it was a cliffhanger. I think it really brought season 6 up with that cliffhanger season 5, and I'm glad they did that. But I'll talk about that next week. Another member said, I love the season. Prometheus wasn't the first one to actually hate Oliver, but specifically, but he was the first to, instead of attacking the city, to get to him and attack him and his family directly. And yeah, because he did attack the city, he attacked himself to get to him, and then he attacked his family directly. He went directly after Oliver. This wasn't like with Slade where, well, I mean, I guess he did attack Oliver, but he was also doing it for other reasons. He wanted to take over Star City. He wanted to control it all. Same with Malcolm. They weren't really doing it to get to Oliver. I mean, Oliver was collateral damage in it, but Chase had a full-on vendetta for 4 straight years at the time. At the time in the end of the season was 5 years, but full-on vendetta against Oliver Queen for killing his father. There was a full-on vengeance that Chase had against Oliver. In the episode where Oliver's changed by Adrian is great. I do agree. I love that entire torture scene, or the entire torture episode, I guess, of Chase torturing Oliver. Again, we really just got to see Chase being a full-on lunatic, so that was great to see. Return of Slade was great. Black Siren's pretty good in this season. Katie Cassidy played a great villain. I do agree. I'm glad they gave her a new cry, like what Dinah has. I wish we got more Talia al Ghul throughout the whole series, but I loved when she was introduced. I do too. Oh, and I completely forgot that this was when the new team was introduced. All of them are great characters and added different things to the show. They did add different things to the show. I'm glad they brought in a new team. Like, obviously Renee brought its own aspect to the show. Curtis brought its own aspect to the show. Even though we kind of already knew him already, there was still new stuff we need to learn about Curtis, so I'm glad we got that in. And then Dinah, obviously. Dinah was, I think, the major part of this new team that really altered the show in some ways because they found out about Dinah because they're trying to find someone to take up Worrell's mantle after she dies Black Canary. So they're looking for a new Black Canary, and obviously there's a lot of pressure to that. There's going to be a lot of connection storylines to that. So I'm very glad that Dinah was kind of the big thing on a new team with all these story arcs coming from and all that. It really was show-changing, I think, for that. Another member said they haven't watched all of Season 5, but for those who want to hear Susan Williams, they seriously need to, yeah. And then says that Susan was in the right position and said that I think Chase is more medicine villain than Merlin. I do agree that Chase is more medicine than Merlin. I didn't really see any hate on Susan, but I'm assuming there was, because there always was. There's always hate on Arrowverse shows, let's be real. But I do agree that Susan was just doing her job. I mean, she found out Oliver was a Green Arrow, by doing her job. He wasn't really hiding it very well then. So it makes sense that Susan would find out pretty much right away. So, I am glad she found out. I'm glad she had a connection in Season 6, which I'll talk about next week. But yeah, thank you for sending your podcast responses. I appreciate it. A little bit busy this week, which is why the episode is a little bit shorter. I'm trying to make them long as I can, but I can't talk forever. So, so thank you for participating. For those who did, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Have a good night. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next week for Arrow Season 6. Episode 6 of the podcast. In the description down below, you can also go see it on Spotify and Anchor. If you're watching on Anchor or Spotify, we have a YouTube channel. You can go check it out as well. So, thank you for all support over there on those 3 sites, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.